Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Global Tea Break. Happy Easter Saturday. Is that a thing? I don't know. I have no idea if that's a thing, but we're going with it. I'm going to enjoy it anyway. All right. Caroline's first in today. Yay! Hi, welcome everybody. Nice to see you all. Beautiful day out there today. My housemate and I have spent most of the morning laying decking, and yeah, so we're trying to get the garden all sorted. So we are getting there. It's a busy old job. There's a lot of stuff to do out there, but it's good. And everyone else seems to be joining us in a bit of DIY. There's banging and drilling and all sorts going on around us. So that's rather fun. But what a lovely day it is, hey? Yeah. So it's after excuse me being a bit scruffy today. I'm a bit sweaty and sort of in my gym kit, but yeah. I don't really care. Right, so it is Saturday today. Tomorrow is Easter Sunday, and I'm thrilled to say that my reluctant quarantine buddy, my housemate Becky, who was such a hit with everybody last week, is going to be back tomorrow. Given that she's works at the Church of England, she's the perfect person to come in, and we're going to carry on the story of the churches in the City of London, and maybe she'll probably throw in a sermon or two or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. But for today, I have a really exciting guest for you. Now, I'm just going to put a little comment, and this, if anyone doesn't know what this is, do not worry, because you are very soon going to find out. Let me just pin that. So, my guest today is the fantastic Subhadra Das, and she is, now Subhadra is going to tell me that I get this wrong, because I will always get this wrong. Let me just find her on here. She is the director, where are you? There you are. She's the director of, hang on, I had this. She is the director of collections. I'm going to get this.
Okay.
Director of Collections for UCL Culture. Is that right?
That is a massive promotion. So curator.
Curator. Oh yeah, sorry.
There we go. I'm very happy to be the director, but the current director might have issues.
Fine, fair enough. You'll always be directed to me, my darling. So this is Subhadra Das, a very good friend of mine and an all-round, absolutely phenomenal woman. And I've just invited her on today because, now UCL, for those who don't know, is the University College London. And Subhadra, you trained there, didn't you, as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been at UCL for an extraordinarily long period of time.
And you are now the curator, not the director, the curator of collections. But in particular, one thing that we're going to talk about today, which is something really, really odd, but loads of some Londoners know about it, and everyone wants to know a little bit more, is the Jeremy Bentham Autoicon. So we're going to start with, who is Jeremy Bentham and what is an Autoicon?
That is a superb question. And so the answer to Jeremy Bentham is a really easy one, which is he is probably one of the greatest thinkers of the Western canon. So if we talk about philosophy, you learn names like Plato and Aristotle. Jeremy Bentham is going to be one of the names that's going to be up there because he came up with this idea, a philosophy which is called utilitarianism. And his idea was that in any given situation, the morally correct thing to do is the one that gives the greatest happiness to the most amount of people, while harming the fewest. So that's why he's famous. The reason why he's famous at UCL, and to be honest, I didn't know that he was particularly famous at UCL. I was a student at UCL in 1990, and when I turned up, there was a dead man in a box. And I figured, I'm not from around here, and I just turned up at the university, and I was like, oh, surely every university has a dead man in a box. There he is, looking very dapper.
I did resize these to work, but clearly...
That was full on box shot. That's rather impressive. I think he would be amused by that. There he is. So this is a historical photo from back in the day when his head used to be on display between his legs. We don't do that anymore. And the Autoicon... The Autoicon is a more difficult question to answer than who is Jeremy Bentham. So the Autoicon is, in Bentham's will when he died, he specifically requested that his body be preserved in this very particular way. So wearing his own clothes, wearing that hat, wearing that little jacket and those slippers, and posed in such a way as when he was doing his work. So he's supposed to be in a contemplative kind of thing. It's almost as if he hasn't died. You're just turning a corner, and there's Jeremy sat there having a good old think.
With his head between
with his head. Now, that wasn't the original plan. That was a bit of a mistake. Surprisingly. So what happened was he asked that he wanted his head to be preserved in the same way as the rest of his body. He asked that it would be preserved in a condition which was a technique, a tradition called mokomokai. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Apologies to any Maori speakers. But it's what the Maori New Zealanders do when they preserve heads. And so he was like, we'll do that, which is easy enough for you to say, Jeremy, but the technicians who were working in London at the time weren't entirely sure what they were doing. And that's why we get that head. I think I sent you another picture of that head. Trigger warning for anyone, which is a bit kind of concerning. Yeah, that was the time that he did get kidnapped. And held for ransom by some students from King's College, which is UCL's traditional rivals. But the real head, what happened was his friend Southwood Smith, who was the doctor.
Can I bring up that picture of the real head that you sent me, the one on the TV screen? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Yes, that's the one.
Little warning here. This is a real head, a kind of shrunken head type thing. So if you don't like that, look at it now.
Yeah, there he is.
Attractive chap.
Yeah, I mean, he's seen better days.
Yeah.
Those are not his real eyes. For anyone who's interested, one of the stories to do with Bentham is that he used to carry those glass eyes around with him in his pocket, and that he would, when he invited friends over for dinner, or he'd go to someone's house for dinner, he'd put the eyes on the table, and he'd be like,
Mate.
"There you go." Why not? No evidence to demonstrate that was actually the case, but yeah, that's one of the stories. So not his real eyes.
Sorry, go on, finish, sorry.
I was just saying, you can see that the people who went to preserve that, I mean, they didn't do a bad job considering no one had probably ever done it before, or they certainly probably had never done it before. But according to Southwood Smith, that was not suitable for display.
Yeah, which I can understand, because it's a little bit creepy, in fairness. Probably not the way you would want to do it in scene. But you were talking about stories to do with the head and everything. There are quite a lot of stories that go on, quite a lot of myths possibly, that go on around Jeremy Bentham. So I thought I might kind of ask you a couple of them, and you can tell me whether they are fact or fiction. And one of them is that people used to play football with his head, and his head used to get stolen a lot.
Yeah, so the rumours of the head being stolen, so we've already seen from that photo that the head had been kidnapped. That was the wax head. So there was a wax head that was made in lieu of the real head, which is the one that's currently on display. And that one did get kidnapped. The dates that we have where we definitely know King's College students kidnapped it was 1975. Now, if you look at that picture, I'm going to say that that's a little bit later. That's more my era of teenage.
Yeah, it's probably 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks more, well, maybe even 90s, I don't know, there's some grunge going on. Yeah, and so that might be a slightly later one, but the one we definitely know for a fact happened in 1975, and they asked for £50 as a ransom, and we paid £10 to shelter, and then they gave the head back, and it was all fine. There is no documentary evidence anywhere to suggest anyone ever played football with the head. Don't know why anyone would think that. I think it's probably got to do with the fact that Bentham left his body to make a point, which is that essentially he was having a go at the church. Now, you're a very good friend of mine, Becky Clark, who's going to be talking about churches tomorrow. Bentham is probably not one of her favourite people because he was so actively anti-church. And one of the reasons why he wanted to have his body preserved in this way, he said, was that they didn't have to pay the church money to have him buried. Didn't think about how much money it was going to cost us in the course of the next 200 years.
Hey, that's your problem. Yeah. You were about that.
So considerate. But I think it's because people had this idea that he didn't care what happened to his body. So I guess it makes sense to talk about let's play football with his head. But I don't think it actually happened.
So stolen, yes. Football, no. Okay, that's good. What about
harm?
Harm, no. There are stories that he has to attend every council meeting that goes on. Is that correct, or has that ever happened?
Well, okay, so if you had asked me that question before 2013, I would have said lies, lies, all lies. He had never attended a council meeting. It's a really interesting myth because there's also another bit that goes along, which is like when he attends, and if they're having a vote and they can't make a decision if the vote is tied, then he gets to have the casting vote. So
okay.
It's a really, really elaborate myth. And the answer is no, that never happened, except for in 2013 when Dr. Malcolm Grant, who was the outgoing provost at the time, my colleague Nick, who was the curator of the Autoicon at the time, decided that this would be a nice thing, a way to give him a nice send-off would be for the Autoicon to attend the provost's last meeting. So I think that's another pick that you've got.
Well,
Jeremy
I thought I did, but it doesn't seem to have downloaded annoyingly, so I'm afraid I haven't got that one, frustratingly.
I'm really sorry, that's my bad. I probably should have sent it to you more.
No, that's mine. I didn't check it properly, don't worry. I did get it, but yeah, of him at a meeting looking. And it was, when did you say that was? It was about
2013.
Oh, 2013.
Yeah, although I did it wrong.
I mean, brilliant. So Katie, our friend Katie, has said present but not voting. No, and no,
lies, all lies. The fact that she even knows that's because Katie is ex-UCL as well. So it's like these are all the myths that are just perpetuated with every generation of students coming in. There was one time I was walking by and one of the students, it was so painful because I could do nothing about it. I was walking in the opposite direction. She was coming the other way talking to her friend, and she said, so the thing is, the founder left his body to UCL and then the students played football with it. And I was like, wrong. But it's just part of the lore. He's literally part of the furniture, but he's kind of metaphorically part of the furniture as well.
So he didn't leave his body to UCL then?
No, he didn't. He left it to his friend, Dr. Southwood Smith, who's the doctor that publicly anatomized him in 1832. And Smith had him at his house so he had doctors in the old days, their house would be their clinic as well. So he was on display in the foyer or something like that. So Smith's patients would have been coming by and it was like, oh, look, it's Jeremy. This is not a good advert for a doctor, but whatever. And then, so Smith retired from medicine in 1850, and that's when the Autoicon came to UCL. And I think Smith's idea was that because Bentham had been so instrumental and such an inspiration for the people who had actually founded the university, it would be the right place to have him on display. But they weren't very quick about doing it. Southwood Smith, there's letters with him being really quite annoyed, and he's like, "What, are you ashamed of the thing that you've got? You should be showing it off. This is the greatest thinker in Western philosophy. He should be on display. What's wrong with you?" And so that's what we've done.
And he is still on display right now. Actually, one of my colleagues, Sarah Barron, who knows a thing or two about queens, has said, like Queen Catherine de Valois in the Abbey, has anyone kissed the lips of Jezza?
The glass has definitely been kissed. So I'm pretty sure that we've seen sort of like lip prints on the glass of the case. As far as I'm aware, neither the real, if you were wanting to kiss the real head, that's pretty kinky. Perfectly fine. People have their own kinks. He's a little bit pungent, but why should that put you off? So the answer again is not as far as I'm aware or can prove. I'm really sorry people are drinking their tea and eating biscuits, and this is really...
Yes, someone said that there's putting her off with the chocolate biscuit. I do apologise, Sarah. But his head's not on display anymore. His head is in a drawer somewhere or something, right?
Yeah, the real head is in a drawer. It's not in a drawer. It's being very carefully kept. Somewhere. Yeah. Apparently it used to be in a filing cabinet. Sorry, go on, yeah?
Bottom drawer of your desk, isn't it? Let's tell the truth.
Exactly.
Were there any other myths that perpetuate that you hear that you think, oh, that's not right, and I really need to tell people?
Probably the founding myth is probably the big one, and that's actually not anyone's fault. It's because there's massive painting in the middle of UCL. So UCL, that very iconic building with the portico, the dome.
Yeah.
If you go in there's a massive mural painted by one of the old Slade professors, which is Jeremy Bentham being presented with the plans of the university, and the painting is called The Four Founders. So he's listed as a founder there. So it's not really anyone's fault that people think he's a founder. It's because there's this actual... The myth is in a painting on a wall.
It's literally on the wall, so they've kind of lied to you on the wall. We should say as well that it is possible. You don't have to be a student of UCL to go and see him, do you? You can just wander on in and see him, and he has just been moved to somewhere slightly more obvious, easy to get to.
Absolutely. So for the longest time, he was in the South Cloisters, and he was in this wooden box with doors. But now he's in this glorious new display case, which is all glass around the outside. It's up to museum specifications, so it's got dust seals, it's got UV on it to stop him from fading. So he's in a much healthier box. And this is in the Student Centre at UCL, which is on Gordon Street. Sadly, like so many other things, closed at the moment. But when everything's back up and running, he's much more accessible, and it's going to be much easier to go and see him. So if you're bringing tour groups to come to see Jeremy Bentham, it's going to be much easier to see him now than it was back in the day.
Because he was sort of hidden up in a little corridor, wasn't he? I remember getting horrifyingly lost trying to find him once.
Yeah. Oh, and the door might have been shut as well. I know some
Well,
people have been
maybe,
really
yeah.
disappointed. Yeah.
So
Sorry about
this is
that.
the wax head, isn't it, on the top?
This is a wax head, yes. That was designed by, he was a medical model maker based in France, a guy called Jacques Taulrich, and he used portraits of Bentham to create this beautiful wax head. It really is astonishingly gorgeous. I don't know if, I don't know if anyone's kissed the lips on that, but I think my conservator colleague gave it a good old clean a few years ago before he went off to New York, and I think she would have mentioned it.
So, yes, I can imagine. So because he did go off to New York and do a little kind of, he hasn't stopped travelling, even though he's dead. He's still going all over the place.
Yeah, for a dead guy, he does get around. So I'm going to forget the number now because I'm really, really bad at numbers. But since Bentham died, the Autoicon has been to Berlin for an exhibition. It's been variously around London in the back of and I'm going to get the car wrong now, so I'm not going to say it. This is the trouble with Bentham, is that there's so much that I'm going to get things wrong even while I'm saying them. So don't take any of this as right. If you have a look on the UCL Culture Museum's blog, my old colleague Nick, what he did was he kind of created this wonderful map of all the different places the Autoicon had been. And yeah, we can add New York to the list now as well. That was a couple of years ago when he was on
You over, didn't you? You actually got in the plane with him.
Yeah, so yes, got in the plane. I should have sent you some of these pictures as well. So he had to be taken apart. We had to take the head off.
Annoyingly, this photo hasn't downloaded, so I've literally just put it up on my phone because it's too good to miss.
Yeah, bring it.
Is with the head off.
Mm.
And that kind of cone, that's obviously the cone bit isn't his body, is it? But there's lots of support. Actually,
no, so the body, it's not a fleshy body, it's the skeleton. So the Autoicon is Bentham's skeleton with the flesh taken off and then wrapped in this stuff. It's called tow, which is like it's like sawdust, but it's made with material. It's linen material, wrapped kind of like a mummy. And then wearing the clothes. That's what gives him his form and his kind of substance. So that cardboard cone keeps the wax head in place.
And we should point out he didn't on the plane, did he? He was in the hold.
He was in the hold, yeah. he doesn't, we didn't just, can you imagine though? Because he looks like he'd be perfectly, it would be easy enough just to like couple of seatbelts and he could have been in first class and he'd been absolutely fine. No, he did travel in the hold.
We've had a question. What does the term auto-icon actually mean?
That's a really, really good question. Autoicon, as Jeremy Bentham meant it to be, was the same way as like self-portrait, but with your actual body. So it's the idea is that it's a self-portrait, but not one that you've painted. It's one that you actually are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So there we go. Now, is there anything else that you want to tell us about Jeremy Bentham before we finish up?
I think you've done a really brilliant job of exploding some of those myths. So thanks for bringing those ones up and giving me the chance to set the record straight. I try to do it as often as I can. One of the things I think that I would like more people to know about Bentham is that, that utility idea, the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Some people interpret that as it's like a moral imperative to do bad things to people. And because it's like, well, suffering exists, right? So that means that some people are going to have to suffer. And what he actually believed, and I managed to hold on to the quote, but the thing is it's still going to be here. But there was a brilliant quote that was going around on Twitter just a few days ago, quoting Bentham saying that the happiness of the meanest and the poorest in society is of equal value to those who are the richest. So the equation, the Bentham happiness equation, is not about who some people get to be happy and some people don't. What we should be doing is making sure that we can do everything we can to make sure that everyone is able to gain the greatest happiness, and that everyone should be benefiting from society, which I think is a really lovely,
especially right now. Well, especially at the moment. So we've had a quick question. Do you still take him to college meetings? So we've addressed the fact that he never really went, once or twice, but that's not something that you. Well, once. Okay, once. Yeah. All right. Getting told off now. But you have no plans to take him back to meetings, do you?
As long as I'm the curator, he is not going back in that room.
So there we go. Asked and answered. Listen, Sub, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
an honour to have you come and explain a bit about Jeremy Bentham, which some people will know and some people won't know at all, and to explode a few of the myths behind him. So, yay, thank you very much. Now, tomorrow...
Before I go, Alex, while we've still got people, can I just say thank you so much for doing these amazing tea breaks? You're such a ray of sunshine and it's such a cheerful thing. And like all credit and all love to you for doing this because it's just a brilliant thing. Everyone's having a really hard time and this is a nice cheerful thing in the middle of the day. So credit to you for doing it. Well done.
Thank you very much. You can make me blush. Anyway, so tomorrow it's going to be back to Becky, my lovely housemate, who's going to be talking about churches and Easter and all that kind of thing. And then I'm looking at getting together an arts week next week. I haven't quite finalised it yet, so I'm not going to tell you too much about that. But yeah, just kind of watch the space and I will let you know. And also, I should say tonight I am doing a virtual tour via a company called The Tour Guy It's going to be 9 o'clock UK time, which means it's 10 o'clock in Europe and I think about 3 or 4 on the east coast of the US. And it's $10 or £10 to join. It's going to be an hour-long tour, virtual tour around kind of the big sites. So Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace, Tower of London, Tower Bridge, Changing of the Guard in an hour, interactive questions, all kinds of fun stuff. So I have put it in my stories. If you want to come and join, please do. Put a lot of work in. Really lovely to see some of you there. Yeah, and that's it really for me for today. Thank you so much, Sub. It's been a pleasure to see you. Pleasure to have you along. And we will see you all again tomorrow. All right? Take care. Bye.
Bye.